also studied history at the University of Virginia, so I may bore you all a little bit with a little bit of history. In 1949 and 1950, and I'm sure that's before most of you were born, Lehigh had some pretty good football teams. The coach was Tom McSwain. They named the school after him. But the 50s was not the greatest of the years after that for Lehigh. They actually had a 36-game losing streak in the 50s. In 1960, I was in the 8th grade, and the team won 3, lost 5, and tied 1. Well, something magical happened when I was a freshman, and I am very lucky to be here, because I know it had not been for 2 gentlemen who arrived at Lehigh in 1961, I wouldn't be here. And perhaps 10 of my teammates would not be here either. Some would. Some of them played all, in fact, all of them played all sports with me. The only reason I played track was it was spring football in those days. The coach would have us out there running. But anyway, we got 2 new coaches in '61. One was Alger Pugh. Alger came to us from Saltville. He was really only 1 year out of Virginia Tech. When he arrived, he scared the hell out of all of us. Heck out of all of us, because he was tough. He was really tough. And we found out how tough he was in short order. Another thing he did, which worked to my favor, was that he didn't care what class you ran. If you could play football, he played you. We had almost an all-senior lineup that year. But in the 4th game of the season, he put 2 freshmen into the starting lineup. He put our quarterback, Bobby Kennedy, and he put me in on defensive line. I went in there and played beside 2 200-pounders. Bill Ronimus, good football player, committee, and Pete Head. Both of them were big guys, and I weighed all of 165. But we went through that season, losing we lost 2 out of the first 3 games, and we lost to Buena Vista and Albemarle, so we were out of it as far as Valley District is concerned. But starting with the 4th game against Lexington, the one where Bobby and I got to play, we started a 22-game winning streak. And it really should have gone further than that, but we somehow created the 9th wonder of the world by losing to Natural Bridge. My wife keeps asking me, how did that happen? I still don't know. But they did beat us. Then we started another winning streak. We won 10 more games. And then my senior year, final game, we played Lane High School of Charlottesville. They were the Group 1A state champion in 1963. They were the Group 1A, that's the highest division in those days, state champion in 1964. Now, we had basically lost Alger Pugh. Alger had gone to G.W. Danville. So his line coach, who also had come in '61, and he was either my position coach or the head coach for all 4 years I was there, Jim Congdon, he became our head coach, and he took us to Charlottesville to play on their field, final game of the season. It was really written up in the papers quite extensively. We took a 12-0 lead into the 4th quarter, and then they scored on 2 miraculous touchdown passes. They won by a score of 13-12. It's been called the high school game of the century for the last century, and it really was a dramatic game. For me, the greatest honor of the game was that after the game, UVA offered me a scholarship. And I really appreciated that at the time, of course. Both of our coaches are in the halls of fame. Alger Pugh died in 1984 at the age of 47. I was just figuring today, he was born the same year as Burt Reynolds. So if Alger were living today, he'd be 82. But he left us far too soon. And coached at G.W. Danville ever after. He left Lehigh. He not only won a state championship at Lehigh in '63, but he won 2 more state championships while coaching G.W. Danville. What happened was in 1990, they created a state of Virginia high school Hall of Fame. He was in the very first class of high school coaches to be inducted into the state of Virginia Hall of Fame. I also mentioned our other coach, Jim Congdon. He is also a Hall of Fame member. He is a member of the Appalachian State Hall of Fame as a player. Now, the reason I bring that up, committee, thank you all so much, by the way, committee. is that neither one of those two great coaches that we have yet been inducted in this Hall of Fame. So I hope that you all will consider that in a future year. Jim Conner's still living. He's 8 years old, and he lives in Statesville, North Carolina. My past is where he lives on the way up from Columbia. So I hope you will consider him at some future time. Okay, I also want to thank, while I'm up here, Larry Smith. Larry's going to be up here in a minute. Y'all all most of y'all went to Lee High, so I don't have to explain to you what the SCA is, which in effect is Student Cooperative Association, student body. Well, somehow I got nominated to run for president of the SCA my junior year. And I went to my best friend, Judge Victor Ludwig, and I said, Vic, who's going to be my campaign manager? And Vic said, Larry Smith. I said, Larry? And he said, yeah, Larry's a popular guy, and he would really help me. And I said, oh, okay. So I asked Larry, and he kindly agreed to do it. I think one of our secrets was he took his good friend, another possible Hall of Fame nominee, the only professional athlete we had during those years. His name was Tank Patton out in the wrestling world, but he was Doug McMicken at the time. Larry got Doug McMicken and Mayor Lacey King and a couple other brave souls to go out on the stage and sing Sammy, Sammy, Sammy to the tune of Louie, Louie. That overwhelmed the student body, and somehow I snuck in and got to spend the year as student body president. Larry, thank you. I'm going to publicly thank you for that, because that was a highlight of my high school career. And Larry was the man responsible for that. I also want to thank ball carriers. We had a lot of great ball carriers in that day. And the thing about ball carriers that makes them special to me is that ball carriers make their blockers look good. Or is it vice versa? Anyway, we had a number of good players. Committee, I might mention, we had a first-string All-State sophomore year, Eddie Mullins, who has not yet been inducted in this Hall of Fame. I hope you will consider him in some future time as well, because first-string All-State is pretty rare. In my class, it was Eddie Carter, and he's been inducted. There's also Ken Huntley, he's been inducted. And John Beduto has been inducted. And also Eddie Mullins. So, I think he's qualified by his accomplishments in high school. Okay, finally, I want to thank, people have asked me, why was it we had so many good players in the 60s? And at least one theory I have, it's the quarterback club. And I hope it still does as good a job today as it used to do. It was wonderful when I was growing up. In the 4th grade, the quarterback club took over for the exchange club to run our Little League program. Every significant player I can remember, with one exception, and he transferred. That was Bobby Kennedy, who transferred to us our freshman year. But every other player that I remember was somebody I knew in Little League. And they were good football players, and they had been trained to be good football players by volunteer coaches, volunteer officials. It was really a remarkable quarterback club Little League program. I thank them for helping me get started in football. Okay, now I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my family. I'm almost embarrassed to be up here because every one of the other 10 nominees from my era are all-around athletes. I was more of just a round athlete. I weighed about 230 at the time, and I weigh only 215 now. And I went out for track because they made me. Otherwise, well, I'll say this. I'm one of the few guys on our team who won 2 state championships. Does debating count? Anyway, my senior year, we did win state championship in debating, thanks to Judge Ludwig and Mark Chevalier and Harry Zeal, but I was second negative. Anyway, it was a good experience for somebody who became a lawyer. But anyway, I want to thank my family. My family has a lot of good athletes. Looking at my brother Al here, he was not only a football player, in the Little League, he has a twin. In the Little League, they were known as the touchdown twins. They are 7 years older than I am. So when I was a little kid, one of my earliest memories of Al and Si getting on their knees in our living room and having me try to run between them. My mother wasn't real keen about that. I don't know how many lamps we broke. But that's really sort of my introduction to tackle football. And they were kind enough not to kill me. Then there was my sister Marcella. She's 10 years older than I am, and she had surgery today. I'll be anxious to find out how it went. But she was 10 years older than I am, so she was the head cheerleader at George Washington High School. She made her little brother Sammy a mascot of the cheerleaders. And I got to go out there in the track and see all these people and see all these football players. And that kind of made me think, someday I want to be a football player. And that's really what got it all started. Then there was my mom. My mother was probably the strongest athlete in the family. I've only met one woman who I think might be stronger than my mother, and that's my daughter. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to come because she had to work. But Laura's got that strength in her hands and arms that my mother had. Anytime we couldn't open a jar, we passed it to Mom. Always did. She was the captain of the girls' basketball team at Lexington High School back in the 20s. Mentioned the touchdown twins, mentioned my sister, mentioned my mom. Finally, there's my dad. My dad was a head football coach for 15 years. He coached at Bedford High School right out of Washington Lee, which was really remarkable because he never played football before. He actually had to go to school at Duke and learn from Wallace Wade what football was all about. But he learned. And in 1940, Bedford High School won the state championship, and Dad was the coach. Dad also had the awful experience of seeing a number of his players die on June 6, 1944, at Omaha Beach, in Bedford being the town that was hurt the worst of any city of comparable size in the United States of America. Anyway, Dad, he never really coached me, so to speak. As a coach and teacher, he used to kind of resent parents trying to tell the coach what to do. I think he was very sensitive to that, so as a result, he never really tried to second guess Alfred Pugh or Jim Conker, but he was always there in the stands. And the thing I maybe appreciate the most, he used to get up at 5:30 in the morning and take me to summer practice. That was a real sacrifice. Anyway, I've got one more group to thank, and that's I want to thank the Lehigh Booster Club for this honor, for this dinner. I tell you, it is a wonderful honor, and I really think it will pay off in the future as it has in the past. Present players and future players at Lehigh, Staunton, whatever high school, are going to look forward to the day when they will be honored this way. And that's bound to make them even better players, better athletes in all sports than they maybe otherwise. Thank you.